Hey, everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of Full Exposure with me, your host, Brian Kelly. Hey, the premise of this podcast is a little different. What it is that I invite somebody I'm very interested in having a conversation with to my studio in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And the first thing we do is we sit down and do a portrait together and kind of bring them into my world of portrait photography in my studio. And then we sit down for an hour, sometimes less, sometimes more. Basically, we talk as long as we'd like, and then we share that conversation out into the world. And my first guest, I'm very honored to have my good friend Brian Vander Ark. There's too many Brians. Brian Vander Ark of the very successful band, the Verve Pipe, which are enjoying an amazing resurgence. They're touring all around the country, and Brian has been the spearhead and creative force behind that band since its inception. They rocketed to fame in the late 90s, and then some of that fame just went away. And Brian's done an amazing job reinventing his solo career. Now the band is back together, and Brian's turned a lot of his insight into his own perceived failures and just adapting to the ever-changing landscape of the music industry into a very successful corporate speaking career. And he's just somebody who's endlessly interesting to me. And one little side note, as you get into this episode, the very first 5 minutes you'll hear is just me and Brian bantering while we're waiting for some cameras to get set up. We're rolling audio, but not the cameras. And so it isn't really the official beginning to the podcast, but there's some fun banter in there, kind of a peek into how we just shoot the breeze. And I really hope you enjoy this first episode. Leave us a comment, give us a rating. Let me know how we're doing. Let me know if you like this podcast, or maybe just tell me maybe there shouldn't be an episode 2 and hang it up. But anyway, it's all about connection. Connect back to us. Let me know if you're out there and listening. And I hope you enjoy this very first episode of Full Exposure with Brian Kelly, your host, and our very first guest, Brian Vander Ark of the Verve Pipe.
Yeah, because we talk about this loud, right? This is pretty natural, A, B, C, D.
This feels pretty good. I think I'm sounding a little more baritone-y, a little more rich, lower register.
Can't get a burp out. Oh. That's the sure test right there.
Okay. I think we saw a spike on that, even though it was a feeble attempt. That was lame. I hope it's not any indication of what's coming.
Can you force yourself to burp?
No, I can't.
Because my kids can all do it. I can't do it.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
I'm speeding, Mark.
I can eat pretty much anything except red onion.
Red onion.
Yeah, I'm deathly allergic to red onion.
Allergic, or just you're a fantastic wuss and you can't handle it?
Listen, I can eat anything.
Well,
red onion
true.
is the one thing that will bring me to my knees. And it's on every gas station sandwich.
This is true. That's because the meat is
It's
sometimes
so easy.
already half spoiled.
Yeah,
And then
true.
you can't,
Speaking
it
of
masks
that-
the rotted
speaking
meat
of that,
flavor.
This is related to, are we recording?
We're recording and the video's not up, but we can.
We've had, Lux brought the car in to get it detailed. And needless to say, it wasn't detailed. They didn't show much attention to detail. But afterwards, the car stunk. And she's like, well, they also do a detailing for $200. We could do it and makes it brand new. I'm like, no, we're not going to spend $200 in a detail, And anyway, so this went on all week this week, or last week. And the car stunk because I couldn't figure it out. We figured one of the kids spilled Starbucks or something, milk or something, and it spoiled. And then this morning she came downstairs with a D&W bag, and it was like an old ribeye that was it was under her yoga mats, under the salt we bought for the driveway. And it's just been sitting down there. I was like, what kind of freaking detail is that?
Yeah.
Like they left a D&W bag of old meat.
You know what I love about winter is the emergency ribeye is usually ever fresh. Like
Well, we went through
you
that
slide
warming.
off the road in a snowstorm.
We went through that warming trend for for a couple of days. That's where it all went bad. I said, well, let me
Sun-
look at it at least.
The sun
Before
is
you throw
doing
that out, let me just look at it and see what's going on with it. Because we could always put in the kids' lunches.
it. Yeah, I hear you. That'd be great. Let's just slice it real thin. Let's bring it back to the
But
butcher.
that helps it. Yeah, you slice it. I
Corned
mean,
beef.
honestly, the good thing about eating rancid food like that is the cleanse,
It is a natural.
Which
It is a natural
natural cleanser.
colon cleanser. Which I'm supposed to get a colonoscopy. Have you had yours yet?
I have had mine, and I enjoyed the drugs afterwards.
Nice.
Too much, where it's that truth serum where you're just spewing nonsense. And Lux took a video of me spewing nonsense.
Oh.
And I was telling an old story of my dad and my grandfather. And for some reason, like an interaction between them, ridiculous. And then I watched the video and I'm like, I have no recollection of telling you this story
It's
at all.
an
But I thought,
amnesia.
but you imagine if you were having an affair or anything where...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I
or
just
like,
needed to tell you something.
I'm so sorry. I did,
We were in Indianapolis.
yeah.
Sorry. That's all you say. I'm
So
sorry. No
fear-
details.
Yeah, no details. I'm so afraid. Well, not that I'm having an affair, but I'm just saying, what
Yeah.
if I do spill the beans on something else like that I did? Or
Yeah, there's got to
You
be
know, that I was
quite
not-
the archive of things before.
well,
you're
in
married.
14 years of marriage, how long have you been married?
22.
Yeah, you've been married 22 years. You've got some things that you weren't completely honest about. You know, that your marriage survives because, of course that dress looks great on you or whatever, as innocuous as that is.
Sure.
Or what, for whatever reason, you weren't, completely forthright in what
Yeah.
that you could probably spill the beans while you're under. I wouldn't go do it again with Lux, is what I'm saying. Like, I recommend you go on your own on that one, or you have to have somebody with you. So
Yeah, that's what they
Hannah
told
can
me.
drive you, right?
Well, Hannah is my oldest, but she doesn't have a license yet. Maddie
is she?
does. She's a sophomore in college. No big deal.
Wait a minute. Wait. Why doesn't she
Yeah.
have a license?
She's just let's put this gently. She's just not a very confident driver, and then has just decided that maybe it's not important. But she's on campus in Ann Arbor,
That's funny.
and
So she doesn't need-
she doesn't need a car
Wow.
for most of the year.
What is wrong with kids
But
today?
then, well,
That
I
was
don't
like
know.
everything when we were kids.
Oh, I know. It was like,
Everything.
I just couldn't wait to get in the car. I could not wait to just drive around.
Yeah.
But
Now I
Maddie's
hate
an
driving.
excellent driver. So Maddie
she
is
is.
she's a senior in high school. So she's driving everywhere, and she likes to drive. And
So have her take you. That's your best
yeah,
bet.
yeah, we'll have a no cell phone policy going in. We'll just tape.
I want everybody's cell phones in
Yeah.
this bag.
Exactly. I don't know. Hey Brian, thanks for coming, man.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks,
This
Brian.
is going to be fun.
Brian
because-
and Brian.
Yeah.
Maybe there's the name of your podcast.
As
Except
of
I
yet,
can't
it's
make
unnamed.
it.
It's unnamed as of now, but yeah, I think some nugget will come out of this where, you're a writer, so something
Yeah.
poetic would be nice coming out of this that I could just.
You said that, and I was immediately offended by that. But I am a writer.
Yeah, you write lyrics, right?
I write. Listen. I write scripts. I did
Yeah.
a screenplay I wrote.
Yeah,
I am a writer, but no, I have no interest in helping you with this,
and not even.
other than talking.
Yeah, this is the limit of our friend. This is
Lemon,
really.
You've already pushed the boundaries.
I already owe you.
I
a
let you
couple.
take pictures of me.
I let you. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I wanted to get into right away your breakfast philosophy. Because you and I
Yeah.
go back a ways. We've enjoyed a few breakfasts together. At least I've enjoyed most of them. I don't know about you.
I think you enjoyed part of mine as well.
That's
I
the
remember
first. Let's,
correctly.
Mark, keep a tab on the fat jokes, okay? Because it's coming. That's number one.
Seriously, when you go to eat breakfast with Brian Kelly, it's like you're in prison. You have to take your arms and put it around your food.
This is true.
And kind of shield it.
But here's the thing: I don't think I've ever
human-
touched your breakfast because you have the most simple breakfast days of almost anyone. I think you've
Is that
always
right?
ordered the same thing. It's always been 2 eggs,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe bacon,
Yeah, bacon or sausage.
and some type. I don't even know if you get toast, but I think you do get some whatever potatoes they have, either hashed or American fries.
It's true. It's true. And then
And
that's it for the day.
That's it.
Yeah. usually.
Until, yeah.
Until the sun goes down. That's what I meant by the
Until
day.
you find the ribeye in the back of your car and you're eating it in the car wash as you're going through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming in. It's
Sure.
but that is sort of like that insight. I don't know. It isn't really an insight, except that it's a pretty basic thing. I know you're root and I, so I want to talk about your routine as an artist. You're an early start guy.
Yes, always been. Well, since the Army. I was in the Army.
Yeah,
Years
so
ago.
that's
So that-
tied together. So
Yep.
the Army just smacked that into you, and you
Yep.
thought that was productive?
It smacked me into being methodical about things and the value in chunks of work. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I do here. I'm going to do that chunk here. I'm not going to finish it probably, but I'm going to come back and finish it, do a little bit more the next day, a little bit more the next day. In songwriting, it's the same thing. It's like if I sat and wrote a song in 15 minutes, I think the song would be shitty. You know, I'm not Paul McCartney who, wakes up and writes yesterday, in 20 minutes or whatever.
Right.
So I have to take lyrics as puzzle pieces. And it takes time. And I could go a whole year without having a finished song.
Yeah.
And I'm missing one or two lines, one or two puzzle pieces.
And this gets back to those scrappy little notebooks you keep everywhere. Spiral
notebooks
around.
everywhere. Ridiculous.
Just how do you, so you're like when you're ready to finish the line from the song from 9 months ago,
Yeah.
how do you find the notebook? Because it could be under the car
That's
seat.
the
or-
beauty of it. The beauty of it is that, with songs that would become popular, which are the least story driven songs, they're the songs that have the most ambiguity in it, the songs that anybody can relate to.
Yeah.
Those are simple and those are easy. And those I can go back to all my notebooks and go, oh, this was a pretty cool concept. I could put that one line in there or whatever.
Yeah.
When it's a story and a linear story, which is what I prefer to write, where it's a select group of people that want to hear a story in their lyric, whether it pertains to them or not, or whether they can relate to it or not, those are the ones where I have to really buckle down and figure it out.
Yeah,
There's
and
no
I've enjoyed
easy way
that.
to get to that.
I've enjoyed that about your writing because you will assume a character sometimes
Always.
and
Always.
and write from that perspective.
Try to.
And
Yeah.
but I'm wondering at some point between the Verve Pipe and your solo work, do you write differently? Do you have like, I need to write for the band versus I need to write for myself? Does it just come out of whatever is?
Now it comes out, and now it's about mood of the song. It's not about lyric. Now it's about melody and mood. If for instance, I've been working on songs for the new Verve Pipe record, and everything right now is mellow. So typically what I would do is go, okay, there's too many mellow songs. I'm going to save this for a solo album, this for a solo album, that kind of thing. So it really is a mood. It's never really about the lyric now, because I think we've established ourselves over the years. And even back then, The Freshman was it's a story-driven song. There's a story to it. Though that did have quite a bit of ambiguity in it as well, and open to interpretation. But now, no, it's got nothing to do with the lyric.
Really?
Verve Pipe could be any kind of lyrical content. Channing just joined the band a few years ago. Channing Lee, she's a phenomenal singer and phenomenal lyricist as well. A lot of people
She's
don't
pretty
even know
nice
that.
too,
She's
like a
terrific,
nice person.
Terrific lady. She and I have been writing some stuff together and trying to get into. We have a song called "The Freeze" right now, where it's that moment where someone is being sexually violated. And they go to a different place. They can't, it's the fight or flight theory. They talk about the fight or flight, they don't talk about the freeze. That's the whole concept of the song.
Yeah.
They're frozen, they don't know what to do. Well, why didn't you get out of there? I'm frozen, like a deer in headlights.
Yeah.
That's what this song is about. And I couldn't get to that place without Channing.
Right.
Because, who am I as a male to put myself in that position of being sexually assaulted as a woman,
Right.
without getting the perspective of a woman. And she nailed it. Like
Yeah.
she brought so much. I'm getting chills right now because it really is a powerful song, and it's powerful because of her.
Right.
She took it to that place for me that I was afraid to go. You know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah, I think from a perspective standpoint, and I also think a lot of things happen incrementally. I think especially to women, and we both have some things in common, that we have a lot of women in our household. I have 3 daughters. You have 2 daughters and a son, 2 sons, but 3 kids at home. Yeah. But I think some of that,
a dog with no balls.
We don't want to talk about Tucker right now. We're just
Tucker is essentially
we're gonna tuck that on the back end.
He's an old woman.
Yeah, he's the maternal grandmother, Tucker. No, but I mean, I think things you talk about the freeze being, it's happened to all of us, but I think it happens incrementally. Like if something as traumatic as what you're saying is sexual assault, I've experienced freeze just when somebody said something to you that you just caught off guard, and you're like, did you just say that to me? And then you have to decide, am I going to challenge this, or am I going to just let it roll over me?
It's it's how much value there is to what they're saying to your life. If you know, I run across, I still do the house concert thing.
Yeah.
And I've done house concerts for, we can get into the whole political thing, but for Trump supporters, and you know, nobody ever even mentions that.
Right.
You know,
you meaning at their
home.
concert? Yeah,
I'm at their home.
Yeah.
And I see a picture of them and Mike Pence from when Mike Pence was, you know, in Grand Rapids or whatever, you know. And I go, okay, well, I had no idea this person was a Trump supporter or whatever.
Sure.
But you have to, if somebody were to say something to me that, you know, in that at that forum or in that venue, I would have to, what am I going to do? Challenge them in their home and I just play the concert for them? Or
Depends
I'm about to play a concert for them?
Already.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Thank God for mobile deposits. Exactly. I do it right then.
Well, no, I know. I'm not equating, you know, somebody's offhanded political view, which might be incredibly offensive to sexual assault. But you know, but my point is, I think in today's society, especially I'm trying to raise, fortunately, and again, we were talking before the podcast started about how you just sort of nudge your kids in the right direction.
Yeah, you guide them.
Yeah, you guide them. So it isn't anything you can control, but I'm trying to, you know, my girls are strong, forceful, you know, stubborn in a good way women. Yeah. And I forget where I was going with that, other than just I can't imagine them being challenged in a way that would incorporate the physical sort of freeze and assault of that, you know.
Right.
And we don't have to go to a dark place, but I'm just trying to tie up your writing with that you needed a gateway.
Yeah.
Enchanting was the other portal to this place that made it the song authentic, right?
It's all about authenticity. If I'm going to write a song, look, Springsteen's great at it. You know, here's a guy, he comes right out in the Springsteen on Broadway thing, and he says, look, I never worked a day in my life, you know, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, this is what I do.
Right.
And yet, listen to all of his songs, and there's this great authenticity to everything he writes about the factory workers and the whole thing. And it's, you know, the only thing that I can say that must have happened to him or must happen to him is that he listens to people and talks to people. And growing up, he probably, you know, probably was a guy that loved a good story and that kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that I like.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what it's like to be this person or this person. I wrote the song The Freshman. I didn't go to college.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, I don't even have that.
Well, I would say I would challenge Springsteen if you were here, and if you have any contacts, I would probably record him before this ever sees the light of day. But the point is,
never be afraid to dream. Dream big, Brian.
No, my point is, Springsteen can say he never worked a day in his life. And yes, if you look through the last 40 years of his life, it's been pretty amazing. But that guy's worked as hard as anybody in show business.
Of course.
And I'm going to correlate that to you. Something that I admire very much about you is that, getting back to your routine and your discipline, you're writing all the time. It could be just, you're always creative. You're always kind of in your own head and thinking about what channel do you want to, you know, is it an idea for a script or a character in a song or both or whatever, and you're always grinding. And in today's music business, no one's going to do it but you.
Right.
And
you have to make your own way. I tell my kids that all the time.
Yeah.
Never rely on anybody else, even when it comes to creativity. You have to make your own way. You want to be an actress? Write something for yourself. You know what I mean?
Well, and there are a few parallels just in the creative industry, but I think that being a photographer or a video director or owning your own company is the same as being a musician.
Sure.
And that there's all those things. You have to put yourself out there. You have to take risks. You have to invest. Sometimes with no return, and you'll go in the hole, and you'll try again, and it's like there's no magic bullet.
Yeah, how many times have you done stuff on Spec? You know,
Well, today is a good example. Like
yeah, you tell me about it.
Yeah, huge risk. I'm thinking that I don't know how many people are going to listen to this, but the point is, I think at some
I'm not
point,
even going to listen to this. I mean, your expectation, you got to lower your expectations.
yeah,
A podcast. Ooh, what's that? I'm so intrigued.
I'm going to send it. I don't even think. Yeah, it's everybody's doing
What is
it.
this?
B,
What
come
is
on,
this, 2012?
we're cutting all this out. You know, I have the power of editing, so I can always take the power
Clearly
back.
did not read the contract because
But there was a point where I want to talk about when you were starting out, just in general. I don't have a time frame. I'm just relating it to also being an artist. At what point did you feel confident that you had something special, detached from ego? Because I think artists are sort of it's such an insular, sort of introspective place, and you think that what you want to give out to the world is of value and interesting to them. So there's kind of a
Right.
very egotistical sort of conceit to the world.
Of course.
But at what point, detached from maybe the inexperience and naivete, at some point did you cross that 10,000 hours sort of idea where you are competent and you are good and you have a voice and
Yeah.
it's unique and it's different and it only gets channeled through you a certain way?
As a writer, I think it happened when I was in the Army, and I started working on a song called This Promised Land, and then that's the song that I gave a demo to Willie Nelson. When I got out of the Army, a buddy of mine worked at a country station, and he asked if I wanted to go get on Willie's bus because he was going to interview Willie, and I said, oh, it'd be amazing. I made a demo of the song I had written while I was in the Army called This Promised Land. I thought it was right up the alley of his alley because of the farmer. There was a farmer contingency to the whole thing. And then Willie called me a few days later. He loved the song.
But did you have a band at this point? You were nobody?
No,
at
it's
this
nobody.
point?
No, it's just a singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
I got my start at the Holiday Inn bars at 16 years old. So I
Right.
was playing Holiday Inn bars. You know, people would say, play James Taylor for $1. I mean, and I would play James Taylor for $1, you know,
Right.
kind of thing. It was for tips.
Was this when James Taylor was young? Was he a younger man then?
Anyway, don't make me pull out the fat jokes again because, but I forgot where we were going with this.
You were
You were asking me at what?
Yeah,
But
at
you were
what
asking
point?
me at what point do you get the confidence to say I can actually write myself? I think it was at that point because it was Willie Nelson, for God's sake, you know,
Sure.
wrote Crazy and these other great iconic songs. So when that guy says, this is a great song, and then I hear from a friend of his that, yeah, Willie listens to that song all the time. At that time, I was like, wow, maybe this is what I should do. And it's a terrible song.
Yeah.
That This Promised Land was an awful, it's cringeworthy to me now. You know, it was
What does
all,
that say about Willie Nelson?
I wonder that he was losing it 30 years ago. God knows what's going on with that guy now.
Right. He's recording. Yeah, who knows?
But, you know, it's funny, you touched about it a couple of days. It was a great question, you know, and when you take ego out of it, because every single songwriter out there who's out there performing thinks that their songs are the best thing, especially lead singers who write lyrics, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all talk about the importance of the lyric. Like anybody could sit in this stool right now and say that. Any lead singer would say the same thing. They talk about the importance of the lyric and the whole thing. But really, when I listen to their stuff, I go, they don't care about the lyric.
It's
Some
more of a
do,
feeling.
but
you know, with nostalgia and getting older and re-listening to catalogs from the 70s, 80s, 90s,
sure.
I'm often surprised by how much I know a song, but I don't know all the lyrics.
Yeah, same
you
with
know?
me. Same with me.
And it wasn't, or I finally now realize what a certain lyric meant.
Yeah.
Like, you know, in today's music, with
Same
the
with
rap
me.
music, it's like some of it's so explicit.
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody else a while back, and we were doing was a mom of somebody that was here when we were doing portraits of their kid, and they're like, yeah, but they don't know what they're saying, you know. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's kind of like brings me full circle to Whitesnake and Slide It In. You know, it's like we were all singing that, but we didn't know what that meant.
You didn't realize
know?
what that was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just crazy. But in terms of, I think
You
what
really dropped Whitesnake in on this important lyric about important,
Well-
or conversation about important lyrics.
it is going to be played at my wake. Slide it in the coffin to the ground. It's a new,
Perfect.
it's a rebirth of both that song and the catalog. But no, I think, there was a lot of grind before you got to that point. And then take me after Willie Nelson. So you get this boost of confidence, and Willie didn't record it, but he, you know, he's like validated you in some way.
Yeah.
So how did you further the ball down the field?
The first thing I did was I formed a band, much to the chagrin of the people that, you know, the DJ and was Tim Brown and his brother Kevin Brown. They ran Transit Music in Kalamazoo. Great guys, I mean, really lovely guys, and recorded my first songs. And I did some jingles for them and that kind of thing. But I said, I want to form a band. And they're like, what do you mean you want to form a band? You just got this great vote of confidence. But I want to be in a band. I wanted to be in a band. I mean, I've always wanted to be in a band.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, I wasn't ready for the solo thing. And when Willie, you know, when it came down to it, Willie didn't have a record label. There was nothing he could do with my music, and they were going back and forth. Well, what can we do with Brian or whatever? Willie essentially just said, listen, Brian's not going to need my help.
Right.
He's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was Willie's way of saying, I can't do anything for him, guys, you know, to the guys that were running my show back then. But that, again, was another boost of confidence, ironically, for me, was that I'm not going to help Brian. He's going to be fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, oh, really, Willie, you know, they told me that, and they were all very disappointed. I was like, well, what's disappointing about that? Willie thinks I'm going to be fine.
And I've had that too, where sometimes I'll meet with somebody who's just starting out, or they're in college, or they're graduating, or just graduated, and sometimes it's like they just want to assist or hang out or around. I'm like, you don't even need me. Like, you should just grind it out and do it.
Yeah,
because
you know.
You have enough of a base to go do that. They don't want to hear that necessarily, because they're still, you know, it would be great if he decided to record your song and put it on an album and get some money, and, you know, that would have helped too. We all need money. But in terms of just a validation, that's a pretty huge check mark for you to go off of.
Huge. And to be able to, I guess, parlay that into something or some sort of a career. At the time, you have no idea what you're doing. You know, this is early 90s, 91, and it's like the music at that time was not a particularly good time for music. A lot of boy bands, remember New Kids and all that stuff. And then
hair bands came in, right?
Hair bands, too. I mean, it was not a good time for singer-songwriters or lyricists.
Right. It was very corporatized at that time.
Very much so. And until Nirvana really broke everything open into the mainstream and introduced grunge and that kind of thing, that was when I said, okay, this is it. This is my time. Because I just got introduced to the Pixies. Mm-hmm. You know, the Doolittle album was on heavy rotation at that time in 91 or 92. And Bob Mould, you know, of Husker Du, his solo record, and these other guys that nobody really knew about in, you know,
that was
Grand
like
Rapids.
wasn't it a Dayton, Ohio kind of like explosion?
Yeah, it was.
That was limited in scope, but like that was a crazy time.
Yeah, and then 92, 93, you know, I think the Guided by Voices album, the B-1000 album, there's another, I think that was another Dayton band, right? Guided by Voices?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, exactly.
And I was blown away. I was blown away because this B-1000 record was a recording of, it sounded like demos, and it's crappy recordings, but the songs were so fun and good and only a minute and a half long. And I was like, this is all we need. Yeah. You know.
Turns out it back farther though, because who taught you how to play guitar, and where did you begin to write? Like, did anyone help you write, or you just started like putting words down? Or did you formalize that process in terms of learning guitar or piano?
Well, guitar, you know, there's an excitement to learning your first chord and then realizing that you can play something. And so the first song I learned was By the Time I Get to Phoenix by Glenn Campbell. It was in a book my brother had. I was in 3rd grade, and it's only 2 chords. It's like 2 chords.
Yeah.
And I was like, and it's like E minor, which is the easiest of all the chords. There's 2 fingers on it, and it didn't hurt my fingers to play it. That kind of thing. And so I bring my guitar to school, and I'm playing. By the time I get to Phoenix, to girls, out in the playground, little girls gather around me. It was like the most ridiculous thing. And then I learned how to play like theme songs.
Right.
Happy Days, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4,
Yeah.
the early Happy Days before
It's
that.
the campfire, like you're the star at the campfire.
That's right. That's right. But the intoxicating thing was that it was girls.
Yeah.
They were seated around me, and then they'd say, "Can you play this, or do you know this, or whatever?" And I wouldn't know it, but I'd deflect it in some way, play something else. Play a couple chords of "I Honestly Love You" or whatever, or "Seasons in the Sun" or whatever other bullshit was going on.
We're getting back to that honesty conversation in relationships.
Well, it really, even back then, it was about the girls.
Yeah. Sure.
And that feeling of
I say that like photographers have that problem, or like me.
Oh yeah, you're swatting them away. Oh my God! I'll tell you this really quick.
Yeah.
When I was in junior high school, I was 6'5", and I weighed 50 pounds less than I do now, and I'm already thin. I probably weighed 150 pounds, 6'5", and I had an afro. Like it was a popular thing in Middleville, Michigan, to get a fro, to get a permanent.
Of course.
And I went to Grand Haven.
Right after your grandma was done in the chair at the hair salon.
I still remember
Meijer.
that smell and how
The rollers.
The rollers. I had the rollers in and everything. And then we moved to Grand Haven where that wasn't popular. And so what I did was I used to love photography. So I had a pretty nice little, it was either a Nikon or some other camera, whatever, easily operated camera that never had film in it. Mm. And I couldn't afford film. So I would take the camera to school and pretend like I was taking pictures. And then I would tell girls, "Hey, I got an opportunity to take pictures of you for Teen Magazine, or 19 Magazine or whatever, 17 Magazine or whatever."
The total front. It was a total show
and there was
game.
never any film in the camera.
Yeah.
But that was a way to make that connection when I couldn't bring the guitar to school anymore, where it wasn't cute when it was cute when a 3rd grader brings a guitar to school, but when a 6'5" Q-tip looking asshole shows up at school with his guitar.
Yeah. Trying to play by locker number 313, just
happen.
whatever.
So, anyway.
Well, I wanted to yeah, sure. Sorry, the video camera's got to reset really quick. Let's see if I'm still recording. Gotta do it again.
Oh my God. What kind of rinky-dink operation.
Hey, I never promised I was good at this. I always bring in the big guns first, the local big gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to kind of kick the tires. Kind of test some gear out, see what happens.
Lux and I were talking about that last night, about the, getting a mention on Fallon and getting a mention on that Ellen DeGeneres show or whatever. And how people are so excited and blown away by that. And that's kind of a hard thing to take, because you go, we're not a local band. I mean, I realize that I shop at D&W and you see me here and I go into people's homes, but we do have some sort of name recognition.
No, I know. And I do want to talk, I'm actually dovetailing into West Michigan, because I think I've known you now, I think maybe 12 or 13 years. It's been a while. And we've worked together I've shot some album art, some album covers for you. And we've worked on some film projects, and we're just, whatever. If it isn't that, we sometimes hang out in birthday parties and things like that. But there is something about West Michigan that localizes not only their heroes. So you're on a pedestal locally, but you're also the guy that they'll see, like, just this dynamic. And I know you more than other people, but like, just that sort of self-deprecation is always so close by in the culture of West Michigan.
Yeah, always.
Where you can go off and be,
Well, that's a Dutch thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's very ingrained in our community to just be like,
Yeah, dismissive of,
Yeah.
of fame.
Right. Which I think you've done a good job of absorbing and being
I've
okay
dismissed
with.
it so much that I'm hardly famous.
You're on my podcast.
I wish, yeah, that's how much I've dismissed it. Here we are.
Yeah.
No, Jeff Daniels, same thing.
Yeah.
Huge, famous, but when he's in Chelsea,
Let's talk. Well, finish that thought about Jeff. When
I was
he's in
just saying
Chelsea,
that
he's Jeff.
he's
from
Jeff
Chelsea.
Daniels.
Yeah.
His dad owned the lumber company. It was a lumber
Yeah.
company, I believe. Daniels Lumber or whatever it was. I might be mistaken there, but he's that guy.
Yeah.
and he loves that, and
Well,
I get
think
that
that's why
too.
he stays there. You can be.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And he's got his own little Kennedy compound now with his kids. Both his sons live there,
Yeah.
and houses next to him with their wives, and it's just a great vibe there, and really nice.
What was
own
nice
little
about that
niche
is
and stuff.
he was one of my first really big celebrity shoots that I had, and randomly I knew
you're
that.
welcome for that.
No, that I'm getting to how it happened. You dick. Is we
You called me up.
So a magazine. No, so it was nice that I was going to pay you a compliment, and then you make it so hard.
I know, because I know the compliment's coming. That's the self-deprecation in action.
My point was I got a call to do a magazine shoot for Guitar Aficionado magazine. Jeff has a great collection of Gibson guitars, and they're going to feature him at his home in Chelsea on this beautiful lake in the compound that you mentioned. But I knew that you knew him, and I don't actually recall how you met him, but I knew that you knew him, and so I was like, hey, I just came out of the blue this shoot for Guitar Aficionado.
Right.
I got to go down to his house. What's he like? I was just trying to get a temperature on it.
Yeah.
And then you've had this long recording and writing history with him. So, and you're both Michigan icons, yeah, exactly. So you're both, but truly, in your own fields, you can point to, 20 or 30 people in whatever genre, business and whatever that are really, really respected and stay here and live here and contribute to your communities.
Right.
But how did you even get to know Jeff? And then I want to talk a little bit about the last album you put out last year with him.
Jeff saw a documentary that my buddy Devin
Was
Gummer
it Karma
made.
Generator?
No.
Was it my documentary I made with you? No.
He probably saw that and
Killed the shoot that I was supposed to do?
he, I don't even know where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
That probably primed his pump for some great documentaries, like Lawn Chairs and Living Rooms, which my other buddy, Devin Gummer, saw, who I've not done a podcast with yet.
Yeah. Devin doesn't have it.
He doesn't have
He
it.
doesn't have it for the podcast world.
Do you know his history? Do you know him, right?
I
He was on
met him
My
once
So-Called
at your
Life.
house.
He was on My So-Called Life, and he was Brian Krakauer on My So-Called Life. And my wife was enamored, and she loved that show when she was a kid. And now she got my daughter Evie into it, who's 13. And now every time Devin's around, on the inside, I could tell their jaws are just dropped.
Really?
Which,
And you're
it is My
nothing.
So-Called
That
Life.
point, you're just
I'm
bad.
zero to them.
Yeah.
They could care less.
So back to Jeff Daniels.
Yeah, sorry. Anyway, he saw that documentary, and he called me up. We had the same agent at that point, musical agent, and he called me up and he said, "Man, I really love that documentary."
Wow.
And I said, "Karma Generator," and he said, "No, that piece of shit." Lawn Chairs.
For the audience, I made
Yeah.
a documentary with my brother Brad about the making of your self-titled solo album called Brian Vander Ark.
Yeah.
And we were down in North Carolina in Little Switzerland with a famous producer, Bill Simzik.
Anyway, we were talking about Lawn Chairs and Living Rooms documentary, about the house concert series, and Devin followed me around, and I happened to do 7 shows in 2 days, or maybe 3 days. I think Friday night was in there, but Friday through Sunday, including the cap of the whole thing was a Verve Pipe show down in Kalamazoo. And anyway, Jeff saw that documentary, called me up and said, "I really love the documentary." And I said, "I appreciate that. I've always liked your work." And that's how we were introduced. And then we said, let's write something together. And we wrote something together.
Yeah.
We wrote a song called My Little Town, which is funny because I had this idea for a song, Grand Rapids. I actually wrote that
For me.
bit for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that bit for you for the
It was a corporate
production.
project, but
Yeah.
but it turned, so I think you made we used kind of a rough version, and then you kind of reskinned it
Yeah.
for a solo album later.
Well, yeah, because the version I gave to you was just a chorus, I think. And
Yeah.
I was like, well, I want to expand this because I
Right.
do like this a lot. And it was about Grand Rapids. And I
Yeah.
told Jeff that. I said, Jeff, I got the song, I got the chorus for this song about my little town and, with a big heart. And that's what I feel about Grand Rapids and everything. And he said, yeah, I think we should make it about the war in Afghanistan. I was like, what? What? It's like a huge left turn. And so then we did. But the idea was that he gave me a story.
Yeah.
Like he said, this is where a story is right now.
Yeah, he
this
put a
is in
larger narrative
2012.
on
Yeah,
it.
much larger narrative on it.
Yeah.
Very, very well put. And then the next time I wanted to do something, I had this chorus for a song called Overboard. I had a chorus of, there's a girl in Michigan up in Lake Superior, and I think I sang it to him over the phone. I said, yeah, this is what I have, and I don't know what she's doing there, but it's just beautiful sea, and I was just up north and love Lake Superior, and it just seems like a really nice summer day, and she's in the water. And he said, yeah, maybe she's dead.
Right.
And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then once I wrapped my head around it, it's like, there's the story.
Right.
Like, that's the
But it's
story.
still
She's
abstract
in
enough,
Lake Superior.
Because I actually watched that video, which is kind of a dark video last night. I was
Yeah,
believe it or not.
Carroll. Brilliant. Another brilliant Michigan guy.
Yeah.
This director.
And I was going to make a joke that, believe it or not, I did try to prep for this. I know you can't tell,
yeah.
but like I did watch that video, which is shot in a very particular way, and the characters. It's a dark video,
Very dark.
and kind of unusual in the costuming, and the narrative is loose, and
Yeah.
I still don't understand the guy in the wheelchair, which I
Nobody
love. I
does.
love the aesthetic of that with the light over it.
That's who Lawrence Carroll is.
Yeah.
Lawrence, do you know Lawrence at all?
I don't. I just know you have some paintings of his, right?
Well, he was the set designer for Smells Like Teen Spirit. He worked with Sam
Oh,
Baer.
okay, yeah.
Right? And then he did a lot of those videos in the 90s at that time.
Got
He did
it.
our video for Photograph, which is a very similar tone to the
So
Smells
you've
Like
known
Teen
him
Spirit.
way back then.
Yeah, he was our first video ever.
Wow.
Video director. And he has a home up in Marquette, Michigan, and he's got a home
yeah.
in Italy as well. So, and he's a really famous artist now in the art community.
Well, I
People
enjoyed the
pretty much
pieces
know
in
who
your
he is.
home.
Yeah, beautiful
And there's
stuff.
sort of a color aesthetic from the one that I'm thinking of as a large scale piece that he gave you.
Yeah.
But that palette is sort of consistent in the video
Agreed.
of that Overboard video, and I love
Yeah.
that it was a Verve Pipe song, right?
Yeah.
Or you put it on a Verve Pipe album.
We did. When I wrote it with Jeff, I said, I think this is going to be a Verve Pipe song because the tone and the mood and everything seemed like that, and I already had Lawrence in mind for this.
Yeah.
Because Lawrence and I had talked about doing another video, and I thought, man, he would, if anybody would get that, he's already up there. He lives in Lake Superior. It's
Right.
like, this is perfect. And
Yeah.
and I thought, well, we'll make it a Verve Pipe song, and we'll go that
Did
route.
you have to fly him back from Italy to
I
do
did
this?
not. I had to wait. Of course, we did that. We shot that in.
I could not believe. Okay, so if you're just YouTube search Overboard and by the Verve Pipe, and
You
this
don't
video,
have to search that deeply.
Okay, I just you're gonna
The way
you
you
have to
said
type
that was
something
like,
in. You just no.
It's
you're
going to be
gonna type
really
it in.
hard to find.
All right. I'm regretting that we decided to do this.
Just type in.
Type it in. Type it in Overboard,
Overboard.
and then TVP. Even shorten it down. Don't even type in the Verve Pipe.
come right up.
So, but no, the video it's freezing cold, winter. I don't know who the main female character
That's
is.
his daughter, Rory.
She in the in
Trooper.
freeze like, and if you're
Trooper.
not from Michigan, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening outside and globally to this podcast.
Yeah.
It is the landscape. What I love about Michigan is the variety of terrain and seasons.
Of course.
But now, especially now as we're recording this, it's middle of winter.
Yeah.
And it looks Arctic or Antarctic.
It is.
And she was in. I love this boat and the rowing and then she got submerged in the water.
She's
and I
in
just
the water,
couldn't
Lake
believe how
Superior,
that had to be
surrounded
dangerous.
by ice, and she's floating on a mini iceberg.
Right.
And there was some stuff that didn't even make it in that was just unbelievable. I mean, it was. I got in the water too. I got up to my neck in the water, and we never used that. And I was like, oh my God! I kept telling people I'm in Lake Superior up to my neck, in a wetsuit or whatever. But she She was a trooper. That's a beautiful video. That's
It
one
is.
of my favorite videos. And a video like that back in the day, that's 100,000 hours. Easily.
Yeah, sure.
Easily 100,000 hour video. And I wrote a check, I think, for $15,000, and we got all that video for that. This is because
I
Lawrence
just want to talk to
wanted-
you about some of the budgets I've received from you.
Anyway,
And they weren't
Lawrence wanted
anywhere
to,
near $15,000.
But the point is
like
that
you could
Well, I
knock a
was saving
zero
up for his
off of that,
video.
and I'm not even sure that we even got to
I totally
1,500
love
for
it.
some of these.
We'll
things.
never work together again. You have your reasons.
Well,
for
you
that. I
take
have
your
my
free
reasons.
money back then, sir.
But the point is that Lawrence does that stuff because he's at that place in his life where he doesn't do it to make the money. Bill
Sure.
Simsick, another great example.
Yeah.
Bill, never paid Bill a dime to produce the 2 solo records. He didn't charge me as a producer, which
Yeah.
Bill's a $50,000 to $100,000 producer.
Yeah, for sure.
Not,
Especially when you live
not
at
a
his
dime.
house.
Yeah.
He's charging you rent.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But I've come to that place too, where you do things that you want to do.
Yeah.
Retirement for me, and I think I'm speaking for guys like Jeff Daniels. You probably just at this point in your life, you say, well, here's how I'm going to retire. I love working. My retirement's going to be, I did that gig last year. I'm not going to do that again.
Right.
That's how that you have the freedom to be able to
That's the
turn
luxury
things down.
is
That's
choices.
retirement. Because
Yeah.
I'll never retire.
Right.
And guys like Lawrence Carroll, they can't help but create. Jeff
Right.
can't help but act. I
Right.
can't help but write.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always going to happen.
It's in there.
You know.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the grind too, which brings me a couple of things that you've hit upon that for the broader audience, which I've admired that may not know as much about your arc, is that when the band sort of imploded is the wrong word, but when the band ran out of gas and you did some solo stuff, you had to reinvent how you were going to derive income and survive as an artist. I think what I really admire is that you bootstrapped it, figured it out. I think you're one of the first artists. I think it's a model that's mirrored quite a bit, but to really do the lawn chairs and living rooms where you opened yourself
House
up
concerts,
to
yeah.
the fan base and just said, I'll come play for whatever amount you were charging. I'm sure it wasn't a lot to start, but it was just. But I remember
was any
one you
amount.
did like 70 or 80 dates in a summer. You do 2 or 3 on a weekend.
110. That's the record. 110. That was 3 or 4 a day on the weekends.
And that saved you. You know, I mean, I don't
Oh.
want to say people perceive you as a successful rock star, but I think underneath that there was a lot of grind and hustle to make ends
man.
meet. And you started a family and you got married. And, so underneath the veneer of what people perceive of you is this guy who's hustling as hard as
You
everybody.
realize you just named 2 Verve Pipe songs.
Veneer?
Underneath and Veneer.
That was unintentional.
I thought you did that intentionally.
Really?
But I saw in your eyes you didn't. You just
No,
threw it out there.
it's a blank, empty.
That's how many songs I'm written. That's what's the sad thing is like
You
I've
don't
used
own
every
words,
single-
Vander Ark. Okay, I can use whatever words I have in my power. It doesn't have to write. You're so egotistical. No,
My
I'm just
power.
kidding.
There again. That was another song. Anyway.
Have you written a song called "I'm Unsufferable"?
That's coming. That's coming. You just filled one of the puzzle
I want
holes.
to. You're gonna
Thank
go back
you.
to the notebook tonight.
That's
I'll help
right.
you find it.
What rhymes with insufferable?
But no, in all honesty, you've inspired me at points where I knew I was doing, you have these momentums where things kind of snowball and things are easy. And then that snowball just sort of breaks apart at some point. It's not anybody's fault.
Right.
You just have some good timing and some good things happen. And then there's a vacuum. I had one last year. It was really, really hard. I didn't know where that came from. I hadn't really been a downslope for I was on an upward trajectory for 6 to 7 consecutive years, and then all of a sudden I'm like, what happened these first 2 quarters last year? And I was like, and then it ended up okay because of the back end, but I was like, you don't know. And my point is that you keep creating through all that stuff. That doesn't really
Have to, yeah.
start.
And that's not immediate, as you know.
Yeah.
Creative income is never immediate.
Yeah.
It's like I can't just go and work for a day and get a paycheck at the end of the day.
Right. Well, you
You
have
know
to
what I
put
mean?
together a larger plan, and it's pumping a well.
Yeah.
Do a lot of dumb metaphors, but
But if you're sitting around and you're at a point where you can't pay your mortgage, if
Yeah.
if that quarter
Yeah.
of income happens to be that bad, where it's like at the end of the quarter, you're like, holy shit, I can't,
Yeah.
But
But the whole industry blew up. So at the same time, the entire industry, Napster and all this other stuff, like it all blew up all around you. There's nothing but shrapnel around you in the music industry, and you found and reintroduced yourself to your fan base, and just started from something. And now, to take it full circle, you're touring with the band more successfully than
since the 90s. It's
Yeah.
been that's where we are again, which is nice.
yeah. And
But here's the thing too. You talk about the way that I think the music industry imploded. For a time there, they had the whole industry had to figure out how they're going to make money once music became free, which it is essentially free. And anybody that was holding on to the fame they had in the 90s, any of my other comrades during that time, my peers during that time, if they didn't figure it out back then like I did, they're in a much, much, much worse place today than they were 10 years ago, because streaming, we got 4 million streams in speaking of quarters, 4 million streams in one quarter. I got a check for $200. So imagine if I didn't have anything else to fall back on other than my royalties.
Yeah.
So I'm fortunate that it's all paying off all that work 10 years ago, the hustling and everything to be able to do what I want to do and maintain, because there is no money in making music and selling music anymore.
Yeah.
And once something's free, which essentially it is for most of us, you can never charge for it again. It's over.
That's a great point to start. Did you want to restart or not?
No, we got 12 minutes.
Oh, okay, cool. No, but and I think that's where it even got stripped down. I think in the complications of life and technology and the internet connectivity of everything, it really went that you rebuilt a base by meeting people, individual family to family, campaigning.
It's campaigning.
Yeah.
Political campaign. It's going in and kissing babies. That's what it is.
I know you enjoy the performance of that stuff, but at some point, what did you end up? There had to be times where you're like, "Why am I?"
Said, I know you enjoy performing. I was like,
"No," but I meant the performance of the lawn chairs and living room. Like it was what you were doing and focusing. You're doing less now because you're busier with the band and other things.
Sure.
So you're not doing as many individual dates. And
no, I still do about 30 or 40 house concerts a year.
Yeah,
but
But there was also, I think people would look at, you were opening for Kiss at one point and going around, and you're on MTV and Letterman and Leno and all those things, and then now you're standing, you're playing for 25 people in somebody's backyard while they're barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
How did you reconcile that? Or was it all cool because you're making money with music and playing guitar?
Well, I think that you tell yourself, no matter what you do, you say, there's a greater good here at play. I have to do this. There are times when I've done house concerts where somebody thought it was something different, and I was background noise. And I haven't been background noise since I worked at the Holiday Inn, when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And those situations don't happen nearly as much. But in that first year,
Yeah.
I was doing 110 of these, whatever, I'd play to an audience where nobody was paying attention.
I've been
Nobody
to one
clapped or whatever,
in
and you go
locally.
from song to song.
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad you brought it. I wasn't going to bring it up, but there was one in particular that it was kind of, if you drew a point in between my house and your house, it was about halfway in between. And I went to take some photos of the house concert. And I couldn't believe, I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, you have Brian Vander Ark playing all this amazing music quietly in your backyard. Not quietly, but just, in terms of the setting, it's not a concert hall.
Yeah.
And people are standing around drinking beers and talking about, like, how many fish they caught on the lake. And I was just like, talking over it, like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's a great point.
And they're not all like that. I'm just saying that.
No, in fact, I would say that's
It's an
5%.
exception. Yeah.
That's definitely the exception. But here's the thing: they're not. A lot of times they're not interested in the music.
Yeah.
They're interested in having Brian Vander Ark in their home.
Yeah.
And they'll talk about that.
Which is
they'll talk about it during the show. Isn't this the greatest thing that Brian Vander Ark said? Oh my God, I remember seeing him back and said blah 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 the whole time while I'm playing. That happens at concerts now. We did an Aware Records 25th anniversary show. because we were on Aware Records with like Hootie and the Blowfish, all these unsigned bands, right? Early in the day, Better Than Ezra, and all that, whatever.
Yeah.
And I just did that in Chicago, or House of Blues. And people talked through the entire concert of these 5-6 different bands. Vertical Horizon was there,
Yeah.
Stir was there, all these other bands. And they talked the entire time. And Channing was with me. And Channing was like, I can't believe this. Oh, they're talking. I said, those are those people. Those are the Aware people who's like, oh, I saw that band back in so-and-so and blah, 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 blah. And they talk the entire time and don't hear a word of music.
Right. Yeah.
They're enjoying the experience of being there, the nostalgia of being there.
Yeah.
They're not interested as much in the actual song.
Yeah. And I think as an artist, and a business person, you understand that. And I guess there's a point where you go like, fuck this, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
Because why? And then at some point
Plenty
you're
of
like, well,
times.
there are those people in the audience, but there are those people that are there because they really want to hear the songs and reconnect to them again. And so it's not like everybody. But the point is that it can be a bit uneven in terms of that audience. And you go, what's the value?
Very.
And sometimes it is all that. It's part of the larger campaign, right? Of just life and doing things, and some things are great, and some things aren't.
Part of the larger campaign, but it's an opportunity for me to get inside of my head and be creative and try something different that nobody's paying attention to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can try a new melody here.
Yeah.
I'm going to try this. I'm going to try different phrasing on this song. I'm going to play this song that nobody cares about anyway, that I'm working on right now, that's not finished, but nobody cares.
Yeah.
So why not try and see what my voice sounds like through the PA system and that kind of thing? There's always ways to make yourself feel like you're being productive.
Yeah, and I think that's my takeaway from that is it doesn't matter. You're going to maximize your time, whether you're up at 4 in the morning,
Absolutely.
making your tiny little espressos that I've seen in the little cups. But
Still doing that.
I know. But the point is that you're going to find something of value, and there's still that work ethic underneath it. Maybe that's.
Sure.
Is there anything in Dutch West Michigan about that? About just like.
Well, there's a Midwestern ethic I firmly believe in.
Yeah.
I believe that this in the Midwest, these are these people. I mean, when you think of New York City, when I think of New York, I think of people that live in Manhattan or whatever and have, I think of the high rises and the people that have the great building, or maybe that they're, what's the term, rent controlled and that kind of thing, or they've been there forever, their families have been there forever, old money, that kind of thing. And you don't think about them hustling, work. And when I think about Chicago, totally different thing. I think about Chicago. I think about, hardworking, city of the shoulder, it's Carl Sandburg, right? City of the big shoulders, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's how I think that's the Midwest. I feel like that's who we are, is that.
It takes me
We're
back
hard
to a
workers.
time way before I was a photographer. I worked at a Meijer store on Muskegon.
I worked at Meijer too. That's so funny.
Yeah,
Of course we did.
Retail, yeah, of course. But then I moved to. I talked about Dayton, Ohio. I moved to Dayton, Ohio with Meijer, and I was a manager. But one thing I noticed that just a simple thing, and it struck me when I was 23 years old or 22 years old when I was doing this. I was just a stupid department level manager in a store. I ran the photo and video department. But I had a staff, and I would hire them. But walking around, like doing store tours and things, like there was a certain pace that everybody walked, that I walked, like through a store working in retail. And then I moved to Dayton, Ohio, and I was like doing a lot of trainee programs that were like there was a new market. They were building new Meijer stores at the time. Yeah. And this is not it's a boring story, but my point is that I would take off on a store tour, and after like 30, 45 seconds, I'd turn around, and they're like 100 yards behind me. I'm like, what? And that never happened.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, what?
I mean, that's part of the Midwest, too.
I'm walking. It's not like I was running.
That's Ohioans.
I don't like Ohio.
I feel that way about Indiana, right? I feel the same way.
All right, well.
But I know what you mean,
Well, there's something in the DNA here that's a
I
little
think that
different.
has to do with Michigan. Of course it has to do with Michigan.
Yeah.
And why we feel like we have to hustle and walk a little faster and, get from point A to point B faster. That isn't always necessarily a great thing.
Yeah.
Because we miss a lot of things on the way. You're not enjoying life. My wife Lux taught me that a long time ago. Talked to me about the process and how
you have to enjoy the process. When we first got married, she was a musician, still a musician, but she retired.
She's
since then.
amazing, by the way.
She was amazing. But back then, she wanted to do the 2-inch tape machines with recording and the old school recording. She didn't like the digital thing, and I'm like, this is crazy. Why would you do that? It's costing so much more money, and it's like, it sounds just as good to do digital. And she was always like, well, I enjoy the experience of it. And I never got that until 4 or 5 years ago, where you have to just enjoy the experience of it. For me, it was always the process to get to a place to sell the product, to get to the next thing, next project. And now it's about enjoying the process. And it took me that long to figure it out, so.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I'm sort of impatient. I'm sensing that probably you are too as a creative. It's like once you're into a project, you want to barrel through it so you can release it and get it out, and then do the next layer of whatever cake you're trying to build.
Yep.
And that impatience sometimes is my worst enemy.
Me too.
And sometimes intentionally, even like having Mark here help light our photo shoot, it slows things down.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, in that even sometimes frustration, sometimes about how long something might take. And we only shot for 15, 20 minutes. But the point is, I think we have a tendency to just like steamroll over some things. And it's in that space, that vacuum sometimes where you can readdress and regroup, even though it's frustrating.
Yeah.
So as a writer, are there points where you're sitting in that? Talk about writers. Have you had a serious case of writer block in your career where you just couldn't pick it up and express anything that meant anything to
I
you?
mean, it depends on if I need something done, and if I have a deadline or I've set a deadline. If we're going into a studio at this time and I don't have the songs ready, yeah, it was a very good example of writer's block when we did this follow-up album to the Villains album, which was the big album. There was a writer's block going on there because of the pressure. But
was that when you locked yourself in a moving storage garage?
No, I did that before.
Where was that garage, by the way?
That was a state mini storage in Lansing, Michigan, and a lot of bands did that. And I didn't live there. I lived there.
You lived there.
I got kicked out of my girlfriend's apartment, and I was
there's
like,
the
"I'll show
story.
her. I'm going to
Yeah.
go live in a storage unit. I don't need her." Ridiculous. So.
Pee on a tree across the parking lot.
That's right. Or in
You're
bottles.
stubborn.
I am. But there were a lot of bands that did that. A lot of bands that rehearsed in those storage units. I mean,
I would
they
love to
throw
do
up
a
the
portrait
doors.
of you in front of that storage unit.
We go
sometime.
back there anytime.
Is it
I know.
there?
I
You
think
still
I
have the key?
know. No,
You know the key? The
no.
PIN code?
We gave it up. We gave it up. I think in 2014 we gave up the storage unit. We took
Really?
everything out. It was all antiquated fax machines and all that stuff from the 90s, and we took all that shit out and we sold it, and so we don't even have it anymore.
But it's there. It's not like...
Oh, it's there. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, we'll put that on our punch list when you have a $15,000
Okay,
budget.
sounds good.
Sounds great. We'll make your next video there.
By the way, I had to raise money to do
No,
that.
I
don't just
understand.
write
I'm not
checks for
saying-
$15,000. Not when you have a wife and
Yeah, I know.
three kids.
I
You
get
don't
it.
just write a check for
I
15
get it.
grand.
I know. Lawrence somehow got a check for $15,000. Yeah. So we're at about an hour mark, right?
Yeah.
All right, we won't go much longer. Just have a couple.
Well, we're talking about me. We can talk as long as you like. But
No, I know you're not going to be able to pick up your chainsaw soon. You know.
yeah, what time is it?
Why is there a tight window to pick up a chainsaw?
I don't know because
I
I'm right
just-
here.
you're
Here's
building-
what it is.
No, you're building in an excuse. That's
No,
what it was.
It was not. I told you I have a hair appointment. That's more important.
I understand.
Than a chainsaw. But
You
here's
think
how
you
my
get a
head-
hair appointment before your photo shoot? Like,
No,
why
I
didn't
know,
you get
I know.
cleaned up before?
Well, no, I make my hair appointments well in advance. You don't know that about me. So I knew
I
you
probably could've
came
guessed.
up first. I mean, you came up after I already made my hair appointment. So there was no, I said, oh, you got some time before my hair appointment.
Are you going to think this hair appointment is really great? And you're going to be like, Brian, can we do a reshoot? Because
Yeah.
the lid is super tight.
Look,
now.
when you've got this to work with, there's not much.
Yeah, what a
maintenance that has
canvas.
to go
What a
on. Yeah,
canvas you have. All right, enough passive aggressivity. So I want to talk a little bit about there's two things I want to make sure that we cover.
Yep.
Your corporate speaking and your children.
Yep.
And so there was the first talk that you gave kind of talking about the roller coaster ride at Failure Lab. Was that
Yep.
one of the first things?
That was the first one. That was the first one I'd ever done, and the first time I'd gotten up in front of a group without a guitar in my hand.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good way to put it, because
Yeah.
that is true. I mean, I don't think I've ever done that before.
And I don't want to take credit, but I did connect you to that organization.
I appreciate that.
And now you're on.
You know,
now
the
you're on
funny
a
thing
corporate
is
tour.
like I don't do let's go have coffee, like unless it's a friend like you.
Yeah.
If you want to say, hey, let's go have a coffee, and
Sure.
But with new people, I don't sit down to lunch. I don't do coffee. I don't like it.
Yeah.
So when you introduced me to those guys, great guys,
Yeah.
they said let's go have coffee.
Because that's what you do today. You know, and
Yeah.
that's the playbook is,
Yeah,
you know,
that's the
meeting,
playbook.
coffee shop.
That's right. I shut that down.
Good.
I said, no, I'm sorry. I didn't say I don't do coffee. I just said, no, I don't have time or whatever. I don't want to do this or whatever. I'll just meet. Let's just talk about it a little bit when we're there, because they wanted to do a little video shoot. While we're doing the video shoot is when I realized what Failure Lab was. Like, I didn't know you were going to talk about your failures.
Yeah.
Right. I had no idea. I think it was the first one too, right? So
Yeah, I
I had
think it
nothing
was,
to
yeah.
go by.
Yeah.
So I show up and they're like, well, what do you want to talk about? I was like, I always talk about my successful, house concert series. And they're like, and?
Where's
And I
the
was like,
failure?
and I was like, then finally I realized as we were talking, I was like, oh, this is about like making mistakes.
Yeah.
So that whole thing
It's a
ended up
cool
being
concept. Yeah, I
great
love,
concept.
It's like the
Great.
for people that don't know, the Failure Lab is it's an organization. They're sort of like TED Talks in reverse, in
Yeah.
that you share your kind of your greatest failure or challenge without the anecdote at the end. It's not like, well, I went broke 4 times and now I'm a billionaire.
Yeah.
Or I did this or that. You actually just leave the big egg on stage
Yeah.
and walk off.
Yeah, and people
So-
have to assess
For
maybe
themselves.
for themselves, what you could have done
Yeah.
differently or
It could be
whatever.
personal. Like some people have, and I mean, the stories that they've shared are amazing. And I've, at times in another one in East Grand Rapids, you performed at, and I took so I would do portraits of people immediately after they came off stage and shared their greatest failure to an
Yeah,
audience,
yeah.
and some of them hadn't verbalized their failings in any way. It's confessed to this audience.
Yeah.
And then they come off stage and literally
And
steps from
immediately
there
are escorted in front of your
camera. It's like,
Yeah.
let's capture you now. But there was something in that sort of relief. There was relief and sort of it's palpable to me, at least in the portraits of some of the people. Some people always have to put on some veneer for the camera, but that's sort of dovetailed down the road of something that you've been doing a lot of now, which is corporate speaking.
Yeah.
And what is the arc now of your speaking engagements? How do people find you? Because you do have an interesting story, a rocket ship, this comet that took off in the mid to late 90s, and then, now you're a family man with children and still grinding and doing what you love.
Yeah, the whole story is a reinvention, what
Yeah.
we talked about. And that's why the corporate, that's why the financial industry loves that.
Yeah.
And there's also parallels between the financial industry and the music industry, and that people people find their music online, and people are self-investing, investing by themselves, not self-investing. And they invest online, and they don't need financial advice as much.
Oh,
You
sure.
get it all online. So
There's
there's
a
those
lot of
connections.
products. Yeah,
a lot of
that
products.
could- yeah.
But, that transition was from Failure Lab to doing the house concerts or whatever, talking about my failure there. But I did a house concert for somebody who worked for UBS, and he said, you should think about going out and speaking and I'm going to bring you in, and I want you to come up with a 40-minute talk.
Yeah.
For this. And so I did essentially the same thing. I expanded that 7 minutes of Failure Lab into 40 minutes,
Yeah.
played a couple songs in there too, and told the whole story. And it's changed my life. Again, there's something that started with a house concert concept, and now I do about one a week
Yeah.
of these corporate speaking, and that's terrific, not only financially for me, but
Yeah.
again, I'm out campaigning. So now it's more word of mouth. That's how
Yeah.
people find out about it, is word of mouth.
That's great.
You should have him come in. No other musicians really do this. A lot of athletes do it, corporate speaking. But
Well, we were joking at the top about just being honest, and I think that's at the core of who you are and authenticity, is that it's not easy to share. You could hide behind your success and pretend things are what they are, but the fact that you leverage this truer, rawer side of you and your struggle to where it is now can be inspiring, but you're allowing people in enough that they see you as somebody completely different and that they can
Sure.
relate to.
Yeah.
Like I can't relate to being 6'5" and playing guitar and singing in front of people, and
right,
I relate to the women swooning, but
of course you do.
it's a cross we bear together, I guess. But I don't know. But no, that's what I admire about that, is that you have to, and you've done it with your writing over the years, whether you took on a character, there's all parts of yourself in your lyric writing that is laid bare and authentic to some side of you, whether it's a dark
Yeah.
side, an evil side. There's a,
Ironically, though, there's a branding there. That's my brand.
Yeah.
My brand is the guy that is open to talking about anything and open, and it is authentic. Although I have to say it's still a brand. And maybe I'm being authentic now by telling you that.
Yeah.
That I'm aware
it sells.
that it sells.
Yeah.
It does sell.
Yeah.
And it works, and it works for me, and I'm comfortable with that. Because there are so many other things that I do when I go in and I have a genuine conversation with people in their home.
Yeah.
And I really like your home, and how long have you been here, and I'm having nice conversations. I'm not just going through the motions. I'm interested in people's stories. Because
I've noticed that about you in time.
I enjoy that.
I've been at shows backstage. You're meeting people that you don't know.
Yeah.
But you have a way, which is, I think, a great quality, is no matter who you're talking to, and there might be 50 other people in the room just in the periphery of the show and the energy and being around the band and you, is that you have a way of sort of you do sort of feel like you're the only person that you're engaged with at the time. You're not wandering off.
Well, you
And I
have to
think
have.
it's-
You have
yeah,
to.
and I think that's, I'm not saying that you put that on. I'm saying that that's part of who you are that
Yeah.
makes people want to connect with you.
Well, compartmentalizing each individual. Did I say that right? Compartmentalize?
Yeah, that's all. Those are words.
For some reason, those are words that are coming out of my mouth, but are they correct? That word. For some reason, that word sounded weird. You know
That's
how, like, you say
I'll take that.
Alka-Seltzer over and over and over, it loses every bit of meaning, and you go, what am I saying? Anyway, so when you do that, when you're talking to people, especially when there's a lot of people, I do that every day because I'm completely scattered and get overwhelmed easily.
Yeah.
Like, my daughter has this problem. I know you want to get into the family thing. That wasn't why I brought it up, but a nice transition. One of my daughters has that thing where she can't clean her room if it's too messy. Because she can't focus on the one thing.
Yeah,
And so I'll
where
have
do
to
you
go in,
start?
I'll have to say, I want you to pick up everything that's white and
Yeah.
put it over in because that's how my head works.
Yeah.
So you have to compartmentalize, even when you're meeting people and talking to people.
Yeah.
I put the blinders on. Those are the people I'm talking. I'm not rubbernecking.
Right.
I'm not seeing who else is there. I'm aware there
Yeah.
are other people here. And when this conversation gets to be too long,
Yeah. You're
I
moving
have
on,
to be
sure.
able to move on.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's always about those blinders for me with everything I do.
Yeah.
I have to be there 100%.
And I admire your stamina in some of those situations because, a lot of it's the same, people will ask you the same kind of things and that's, but yeah, it's all the same. But they don't feel that. They feel like you just asked that, for the first time and you give them a candid answer.
Yeah.
And there was one other point I wanted to go back to that if I can remember. Was that, you taught me something early on, which you just exemplified why this silly offhand comment you made to me years ago, it still resonates to me, is that you're saying you're the guy in the band that broke up and came, like the arc and the failure and the rise again and all this stuff. You've owned this and turned it into something else.
Right.
And so there was one point you came to my house, the house we live in now. We had just bought it and we were renovating it. And I had these, they aren't these glasses, but I was very self-conscious about a new pair of glasses that I bought.
What did I say?
Eyeglasses.
I'm such an asshole.
And I was like, no, it wasn't even mean, but you said it so offhand, and I know this is why you don't remember it, but it was such a moment that it always has stuck with me, even though I'm wrapped in all kinds of other insecurities about weight and stuff. But I just said, I opened the door for you, and you're there, and it's like, hey, you got new glasses. I'm like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, are they too trendy or what? I just, I retreated into my insecurity about wearing these trendy new glasses.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, you just got to own it. Like, you looked at me like the sad, pathetic
because
thing.
you were so. I kind of remembered that, but if that's the situation, you can see in somebody.
Yeah.
You can see in somebody that they're like, oh, geez, these are new, and I wish he wouldn't have noticed, or I'm kind of glad he noticed. And it's like this whole neurotic. You're suddenly Woody Allen about everything,
But the way you said it was like it was with a little contempt and a little bit of encouragement, and it was like everything's like, and it was something that you'd been doing your entire life at that point. It was just like, dude, you just gotta own it.
Yeah.
Like, either don't wear them or wear them and forget about it.
It's, honestly, that's a lot. There's a lot of wisdom in that. But it's true. That's how I live my life. You have to live your life that way.
Yeah.
No, you have to own it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's funny.
Because people will call it. They'll call it on you. I do want to talk about your family because we've watched our kids kind of grow up together and separately. But in terms of like, my kids are a little bit older. My Evie is the same age as my youngest daughter, Faith. Mm-hmm. But I'm so impressed with Evie's. Like, she is an incredible performer, singer, actress, very much on stage. In plays and productions. Mm-hmm. And the level of maturity and drive that she has to do that at the level that she does it, I know she sees you and Lux performing all the time, but that has to come from inside her. You're not pulling her.
That's her own thing. She was a showbiz kid from the beginning. She was on the road with us with our Airstream show, and she went everywhere, and we took her to all the shows and even places where it wasn't appropriate to take her. I mean, as far as the people say, well, it was a house concert or a listening room, and I've got a baby there. But, baby travels with us wherever we go. So she was in that. I don't know if any of that rubbed off. I think it's just innate. I think
it's in her DNA, collected between the both
well, I
of
think
you.
so,
It's
but I
just
think,
wired that
but
way.
also, you have to give credit to her as well, is that she is very driven, and she absolutely loves acting and Broadway. She loves the musicals. She's great at it. She's not, listen, and there was a time, and I'll tell you this really briefly. There was a time, 2 years, about 2 years ago, when she was working on this play Fun Home at the Circle Theater. Terrific musical. And she was working, they were doing 8-hour rehearsals every day, and she's in school.
Yeah.
And she'd get home and do homework and whatever, and she's getting, A's and B's in school still. And my mind was like, why isn't her room clean?
Yeah.
Evie, you've got to keep this room, and like my head is at the room. Why isn't this room clean? Why is her room a mess? And Lux had to sit me down and go, look.
Yeah.
She's working 8 hours a day in rehearsal, and she's getting good grades. And I had to go, what the fuck is wrong with me? Of course. Yeah. And so you have to, I had to ease off it.
Cheetos, like watching YouTube videos.
It's the same thing with math. She's not good at math. I'm not good at math. Lux isn't good at math. She's, if she's not doing well in math, who cares? I don't care.
Right. No, that's a great point, and I think it brings it back to being artists, because I do feel that you follow the talents that are the least resistant, like water. You have to hone your skills, but you're not going to go play, you're not going to go, well, I need to do a Spanish flamenco guitar next because I haven't done that yet. You're not.
A better example of that is learning how to read music. Like, I don't read music.
Yeah.
And for me to take the time now to read music, I think it would be superfluous in my life.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason to do it. There's so much time consumption there where I could be doing other things that I enjoy more. And reading music, frankly, is math. To me, it's mathematics. It's so boring to me. I have zero interest in it. Yes, it's nice if you can sit down and play a song, like have my Elton John songbook from the 70s, and play the black keys and the white keys and everything, and play it perfectly and sing along and stuff. There's value in that, too, for that moment. But it's more fun for me to, like, plunk it out and try to figure it out and listen to it a little bit and that kind of thing. It takes a little longer, but in the end, it's worth it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like I couldn't go and paint. You know what I mean? Like, I can do what I can do. I can't
Right.
But that was channeled for me like a riverbed, like
Sure.
and there was it was something that
Like you said, like water.
Yeah,
You're
it
going
is.
where it takes you, the flows,
and
and
and energy. And I do believe that more as I've become less religious in the sense of West Michigan, of guidance and energy and following. There's a reason certain things are easier than other things. So why pick up a hammer and hit yourself over the head about stuff that you can't do because of expectations that you should?
yeah.
Or
But people shouldn't misinterpret this as taking the path of least resistance.
correct.
That's a totally
I'm
different
talking about,
thing.
and what you're mirroring is that drive of creativity
Yeah.
that is drawing you in a particular direction is
Mm-hmm.
easier to follow that current because it's almost pulling you along,
Yeah.
as opposed to like swimming against it because you have some other master you're trying to serve
Right.
out of that. So Evie's this great kid. Willow is a classic
the
middle
dark
child.
one, yeah.
I mean, my middle child is
And
much
Maddie's the same
different.
way.
Yeah, Maddie and I think Evie and my Hannah, or my oldest, are the classic
Very
oldest
similar.
kids.
Very similar.
And then Rowan. So you have
Yeah.
a son who's a little bit after. He's 3 now or 4?
Three. He's almost 4, 3.5.
Great. And then you have an older son, Jake.
Josh.
Sorry.
Yep.
And talk about that experience, because you were a father at a very young age.
Yeah, 19.
19.
Yeah. You get your high school girlfriend pregnant, and the right thing to do is to,
Yeah.
is to be the dad and be there and not abort.
Right.
It sounds really for a callous way to say that, but that's essentially what it is. It's abort and start over.
Yeah.
And I did the right thing. I'm using the quotation marks here. And of course, thank God I did.
Yeah.
I did what I did because he's a guy now. He's a great guy. But that's one of those things where I wasn't focused on family then.
Right.
I was much more interested in music, and what I was trying to do. I was trying to figure myself out at 19. I was in the Army at the time too.
Yeah.
So, you go through your whole life and you're worried. There were times when I was worried he was calling me dad in front of other people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's, because, I'm a musician. I can't, people know that I have a kid, that
Right.
kind of thing,
Yeah.
And just stupid, terrible things as a father.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I made those mistakes with Josh, and that's very unfortunate. I mean, now I'm focused, of course, on the family first, and I was ready for that. I wasn't ready for that back then. And unfortunately, whether Josh and I have a good relationship now, but, there's a period of time where we had a terrible relationship, and that was all my fault.
Yeah, and that's has that influenced? Is that something you've put aside, or is that something you've explored in your music or lyrics, or that side of it, or shades of that?
No,
perception?
I mean, the funny thing is that more than anything, I think I've complained about my own father in my music.
Okay, yeah.
I haven't complained about my lack of being a good father.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's too close to me.
Yeah.
If that's too hard on my sleeve, I don't know. But I've always taken those other characters, like we talked about earlier, as a songwriter, becoming another character.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because I'm afraid of myself and getting that deep. I don't know that that's necessarily true, because I feel like I am an open book when it comes to that. But it just doesn't seem that interesting to me. That's another thing too. As a songwriter, you can do anything and go anywhere you want to
Right.
go. Why do I want to be me?
Right.
Well,
that's true.
Why assume that everybody wants to know about me
Yeah.
in my songs? I don't get that.
I can totally see that in terms of even in a practice of being an artist that is already sort of self-respect, self-involved, to then
Yeah.
just continue to mine,
Yeah.
your own real existence and failures in some degrees. It can be an escape or a catalyst in some ways.
Such a great point. It's so true.
Yeah.
It is all about you most of the time, as an artist. And I don't know any artist that isn't that way, that doesn't think
Right.
in those terms of how is this affecting me and how can I put it into my art.
Yeah.
And that's 24/7, essentially, is me wake up in the middle of the night thinking about me.
Right.
And, my issues and how I can capitalize on my issues in a song or whatever.
Yeah.
I think every artist is that way. But,
yeah,
as you get older, you start to realize that it's not as important, that you can separate the art life from the real life.
it's a lot of it will wash away.
Yep.
You
You really like that water metaphor.
Well, I grew up.
You
on
were
a lake.
90%.
I'm from
You're about
Michigan.
98% water.
And yeah,
Just came
I
full
wish I
circle.
had a quick retort, and I thought, I'm gonna burn him back on this so hard, and it just failed me. It just failed me because the burn was so complete
Well,
and so thorough.
just chalk it up there to the calories you're not burning either.
You're a mean, dark person. I did not know this necessarily before I invited you in here.
I
Here I am.
only say this because you still don't own it. You need to own it.
Well, we are going to call the podcast. What are we going to call it?
Own it. You have to own
Pudgy, the Pudgy Podcast.
Pudgecast.
But I think to just loop through fatherhood, I think, just as an outside observer of you and your family,
Still laughing about that. Sorry, go ahead. Do it again. I'm sorry. Take it again. Take two.
we don't have, you're going to make me edit this now.
No. Do it.
No, as an outside observer, again, I'm trying to pay you a
That's good.
compliment.
That's good.
Is that, the world that you've built for yourself with Lux and your family now and your, just as a father, it looks idyllic, and I don't mean that in a fake way. It resonates to me as like those people really love each other. Mm-hmm. They have a great family. They pour all that love into their children and your career, and you guys have made it work in a world that is a lot of pressures would tear a family like that apart.
Yeah.
And part of it I would put to your seasoning as you enter this other chapter of your life.
Sure.
You weren't 21 or 22 again when you were trying to do this with Lux.
I mean, it's as simple, for me, it's as simple as this. I'm 54 years old. I've got a gorgeous, hot, beautiful wife who's quite a bit younger than me that, just still loves me and wants to be with me. I mean, I'm getting to be a cranky old guy. You know what
you
I mean?
are, clearly.
I am.
Taking shots at hosts.
She'll slap me around and say, look, I'm not going to be with a cranky old guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's easy for me. I'm not the martyr here.
No, and I think our households are similar in that we have both very strong type A type of. They're gonna lead the household, so you just have a role to play and not screw it up.
That's
like as much
essentially it.
as you can contribute, you contribute, and in a way, as enthusiastically as you
true.
have, but it doesn't you're also fully accountable for when you're not invested or you're too selfish or you're too wrapped up in your own garbage. They will pull you out of it in a heartbeat in a way that isn't always fun.
When I'm home, and I don't know if this is like what it is for you, but I find myself, there are little things in the house that bother me. There's molding that's chipped or whatever and that kind of thing. And I always notice those things when I come home or whatever. We have a gorgeous home.
Yeah, I love your house.
Old house.
Yeah.
Love your house too. You got the same kind of thing going on, but it's an old house, or whatever. And there's things for me to complain about, to say, I gotta get that done or whatever. And it can translate when you get home. If you're out on the road, you get home, and then your wife might take that personally, for some reason that she's not taking care of the crown mold or whatever. 90% of my time at home is trying to not talk. Because when I talk, I open my mouth, it comes out that the molding's chipped, or it needs paint, or something here, or the kids are this, or there's something here, something wrong here, something wrong there. 90% of my day when I'm home is to just keep my mouth shut, just trying to find ways to keep my mouth shut and not complain about anything.
Yeah.
And I have no business complaining.
Right.
I have a great life.
Yeah.
But, that's the Dutch in me, the old Dutch guy in me who complains about
Yeah, but it
things.
also, that also what drives you to other things. It's if you could just, you would have, you would have moved on in 99 or 2000 or 2001, and just like, I did it. Like there's part of you that's just like that unrest as an artist is what is keeping you. It's destroying your relationships at home, but boy, is it an asset on the other side. You think you're miserable? Talk to Lux sometime.
Oh, my God,
just
believe me.
venting. No.
Thank goodness she's into yoga, and she's a yoga teacher now, and she found something that's her thing, clearly her thing. She adores it. She could do it all day. Yeah, it's great.
Are
Wonderful.
you doing
She's
any
happy,
yoga?
I'm happy.
Have you trying to do
I did serious yoga 6 months, about 6 months. I went every day, and I wasn't making advances the way I wanted to make advances. Like when you go to work out, and like you have a bench presses, your template.
You're talking in theory, right? I mean, you're asking.
No,
like,
yeah.
You said you like it was actually me working out.
No, it's like the royal you.
Yeah, thank you.
But there are benchmarks. Bench press, you say, well, I can bench press this much or whatever, and work on that, and I do that thing. With yoga, I could never get anywhere to where I felt like I can do this. I'm 6'5", again, and we're a couple 100 pounds, and it's hard for me to stretch because I'm so tall and I'm so used to slouching the whole thing. So stretching for me is hard. It's hard to do the poses.
Yeah.
And if I'm not doing the poses right, and it takes me 6 months and I'm still not doing them right, in my head, it's like, what is the point? As much as I enjoy that process of doing the yoga, of like the breathing and the whole thing, and when I'm done, I'm like, oh, I love this or whatever. I'm not making the advances that I want to make. I quit. So I stopped doing it. Now I do it on occasion with her, but it's not a normal practice for me.
Is there a class she teaches about rock guitar poses that you've mastered?
Listen, it's so funny because another one of her instructors came to our show at 20 Monroe in Grand Rapids, and big rock show, first time they'd ever seen it. And I was thinking about that as I was doing my typical rock poses. Like I get down and I don't do the splits. I can't do the splits, but I'm in these almost semi-yoga poses. Right. And I'm like, I wonder if they're thinking that right now. Like he's not nearly that flexible when he comes to class, In
the moment, yeah. You give it up.
Heavily medicated.
Is there anything you wanted to talk about, I think
that's my train.
Yeah, it's a perfect time for you to pick up your chainsaw. That's the most flimsy excuse for a hard stop I've ever heard. I have to pick up a chainsaw before my hair appointment.
People that are just tuning in are wondering, why the hell are they playing train sound effects on this podcast? It's the stupidest thing.
Well, now I'm going to open the double doors to my whole train set world, and then we'll play with our Lionel. I was watching Sopranos, and the one character is like really into trains, and he's at his garage, and he actually wears the little conductor hat.
Love that.
It's funny. Any final thoughts? I really appreciated you coming in, but was there something that you thought you would say or talk about as we meandered through this?
No, I think and I don't mean this in a bad way, we did cover pretty much anything I would want to talk about, but the process, I think the most important for me to get across with anybody when I discuss things creatively is that the process is the whole thing. The process of actually painting, the process of taking the pictures, of getting to the final product is never what the process is.
Yeah.
We as musicians, we rarely will listen to a song after we've spent a year writing it, a year recording it, and that whole time period of working on the song or whatever. Then it's done. How often do you listen to it?
Yeah.
I listen to it once or twice.
Sure.
But I never go back to it. And we don't enjoy the end result nearly as much as we enjoy what's going on in the world. I think you could take that in any part of your life and say, well, that's the most important thing is what's going on now.
Right. We only have right now in our consciousnesses in that moment, not to get off into a Jim Carrey type of existence, but this is what we have. So let's just enjoy that.
That's exactly right.
Well, thanks, buddy. I really admire you.
Always a
admire
blast
your career.
to talk to you.
Yeah.
Even if we're not recording, it's fun to talk to you.
I have been recording everything, so I'm going to need a couple checks before I release those. All right, man. Good luck with the tour.
Thank you.
And all the Verve Pipe stuff coming up. I know you're going to have a million dates. Go to brianvanderark.com if you need anything.
Yep.
And I'll see you soon.
Thanks, folks.
Yeah.